anchor of America Reports on Fox News. He is live in D.C. So, John, this thing quickly organized. I don't know how many people you got down there. Lots of politicians. How do you read this? What's the significance?
I mean, it really was an extraordinary afternoon here in Washington, D.C. We had tens of thousands of people. The Park Police may give us ultimately a final count on the number of people who came down. But it was a massive rally on the Washington Mall. And there was one moment where four members of Congress, Speaker Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Joni Ernst, Republicans and Democrats, stood there, raised hands, and raised their arms and held hands in a show of solidarity. I mean, how many times do you see that happening in Washington, D.C.? And then there was the families of the hostages who were being held in Israel, who were very, very compelling. And one of them saying, you can abhor the suffering of the Palestinian people and abhor the suffering of families like mine as they live out each and every day not knowing what the fate of their loved ones are. So it really was an extraordinary gathering here, marked, of course, by the absolutely peaceful nature of it, in stark contrast to some of what we've seen across the country on the other side, Larry.
So for a change, right, a pro-Israel something or other, we've had several weeks of basically anti-Israel, anti-Semitic kinds of marches, demonstrations, politicians, all the rest of it. I don't want to spoil it, but I was watching, I couldn't watch all of it because we're preparing for the show, but I saw Senator Schumer talk about how important Israel is. Of course, he's holding up a vote on the Israel money because he wants to attach it to the Ukrainian money, which is another can of worms. I don't know whether you have a thought on that. We have Steve Scalise coming in a few moments. But I mean, you know, I'm glad, listen, for Israel, totally. But I just wish they'd give them their money, their ammunition, replenish the Iron Dome. You know, this is very important to Israel.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that there's an urgency to the money for Israel. But I've talked to Republicans as well, like Michael Waltz, who say, look, you've got to put Ukraine money in there, too, because we can't forget about what's happening. Israel is obviously in a very, very significant fight against Hamas. It says it's an existential threat. To some degree, that's probably the case, but they're just feeling like we cannot live day to day with the threat of another October the 7th. That's why they have to decapitate Hamas. But when you look at what's going on in Ukraine as well, I mean, that really is an existential threat, because if Russia is allowed to roll over Ukraine, that gets rid of democracy as we know it there, and then puts the rest of Eastern Europe and maybe even parts of Western Europe at risk. So both of those are very important. One final thought here on the nature of the bipartisanship, what we saw here in Washington, D.C. I really think we saw that demonstrated, Larry, just an hour ago on Martha McCallum's fine show, where you had Mark Thiessen and Philippe Rines, who was Hillary Clinton's right-hand man for so long, on the same program at the same time, in absolute agreement about what was going on today in Washington. So what we saw today really has brought together both sides in a way that, you know, I kind of lamented could be a model for the way that Washington could work going forward. I know it's only temporary. I know it's only a moment in time, but it really was something to see.
No, I'm all for it. John, can I raise one other point, please?
Sure.
David Ignatius, respected columnist in the Washington Post, predicting immediate announcement, like in the next day or two, from a variety of sources. There's going to be a 5-day ceasefire and some kind of Hamas, Israel, Palestinian hostage swap. Not all the hostages, maybe 70-plus women, children, and a 5-day ceasefire. John, are you hearing much about that?
Well, this is a deal that's being brokered with the participation of the United States through the Qatari government, which brokered a couple of the other hostage releases. It would be an extended pause, if you will. I don't think you want to call it a ceasefire, because a ceasefire connotes something different, but it would be an extended pause to allow perhaps women and children to be released from Hamas custody and back into the hands of Israel. The big question, Larry, is if you give Hamas a 5-day break, what does it have an opportunity to do in those 5 days? Israel may have Gaza City surrounded. it may have the Al-Shifa hospital surrounded. And by the way, an interesting development in that, and that is that the United States, John Kirby, the Defense Department, both said that United States intelligence has independently confirmed that Hamas has been using hospitals, including Al-Shifa Hospital, for military purposes and to hold hostages. That's an interesting acknowledgement. But you may have this area surrounded. But at the same time, Hamas is still firing rockets all over Israel. So if you give them a 5-day pause, what does that give Hamas an opportunity to do? There's also a real concern that if you give Hamas a pause, that some of the leadership may be able to escape, maybe try to go to southern Gaza. So Israel would really have to keep a tight ring on everything that's happening right now in the northern part of Gaza if it were to allow a 5-day pause to make sure that, or at least limit the possibility of any of that happening.
I think it's a surprising development if and when it occurs. It does run counter to what Prime Minister Netanyahu has been saying, but this is what the Bidens seem to want, and it looks like they're going to win this round. Last one, John. Unfreezing $10 billion of Iranian assets. Wow. In the middle of this, really?
I was talking to Mark Dubowitz from the Defense for Democracies about this. He is in Israel right now, meeting with some of the Israeli military leaders and political leaders. And he said, absolutely, it is the wrong thing to do, particularly at this time. And even though the State Department is saying, look, there are strict controls on this money. We've never denied food to any country in the world. As we know, Larry, money is fungible in the same way that the money that was being held by South Korea and then transferred to Qatar could be fungible. Every dollar that Iran does not have to spend on looking after humanitarian needs in its country, it can spend somewhere else. So I think there are people who are making a valid argument here that giving Iran further access to cash in foreign banks is going to end up biting us in the you-know-where.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and not only that, but the very sharp irony that Iranian proxies, at the behest of Iran, continue to attack American interests and American forces in the region, and yet the State Department, on the other hand, is renewing these waivers to allow them access to foreign banks. That's not sitting well for
It's
Iran.
unbelievable. I mean, I'm sorry. It's objectively unbelievable. And by the way, there's going to be a big outcry. I know you covered it with Sandra. It's a terrible, terrible story. John Roberts.
Clearly, Larry, smarter people than I are in charge over there at the State Department, because
John,
I would think that doesn't make sense, but
John,
somebody clearly does.
I'm not smarter than I point. Are you sure, John? Maybe we can talk. I don't know. John Roberts, folks, the best of the best.